Thanks to companies such as Othram Inc., 2021 has been a successful year in terms of identifying the once unidentified. Forensic scientists and genealogists have been working around the clock to bring these people home and provide their families with answers. In some cases, there are only a handful of family members left to inform, but each case is filled with sadness and closure that comes with knowing what happened to their loved one all those years ago. Number 5. Close to 4 p.m. on July 28, 1995, a man was found on the tracks at a crossing at 13th Avenue and Courtney Street in Saskatchewan, Canada. 2 Canadian Pacific Railway employees had seen the man moments earlier close to the tracks and signaled another staff member to blow their whistle so that the man would stand back. The man stood back for a second before putting himself close to the tracks once again. Sadly, before anyone had time to react, the man was struck by a train carrying 104 boxcars. Staff immediately stopped the train and rushed to the man's aid, but it was far too late. The Regina authorities were called to the scene and immediately opened their investigation. After searching through the man's belongings, they found that he wasn't carrying any ID with him, and thus he was listed as a John Doe. This is the name that he would carry for 26 years until he was finally identified through genetic genealogy. The biggest clue to the man's identity was the t-shirt that he was found to be carrying. Investigators noted that the t-shirt was from Padova City Resorts in British Columbia, and believed that he was likely either from that area or had spent a significant amount of time there. The Regina Police Service struggled to identify their Doe, and in the following weeks they released his information to the public in hopes of generating leads. The Regina Police Service also looked through missing person cases in the area, but found no one who resembled their John Doe. A witness came forward and told the Regina Police Service that he believed he had spent time with the unknown man in the days leading up to his demise. The witness told investigators that the two had hitchhiked on July 22, 1995, from Strathmore, Alberta, to Swift Current and then to Regina. The witness was also able to provide an insight into the man's personality, saying that he was extremely well-mannered and didn't seem like a drifter. He also told the witness that his name was Brian and that he was from Ontario, but never gave any further information about his identity. The witness also claimed that the Doe seemed inexperienced in hitchhiking. He didn't know how to thumb a ride and didn't know street slang commonly used by other drifter circles. With all this new information, the Regina Police Service followed every lead to its end, but ultimately came up with nothing. For 26 years, the name on the headstone remained as John Doe. That was until 2020, when Othram Inc. entered the picture. In late 2020, the Saskatchewan Coroner Services reached out to Othram Inc., who is a genetic genealogy company based in Texas. The two agencies worked side by side to analyze the new 21-marker profile of their Doe. Previously, the DNA obtained from the John Doe had only contained 9 markers. Thanks to Othram's incredible work, a distant match was found, and genealogists began tracking down the unidentified man's family. In August of 2021, Othram and Saskatchewan Coroner Services held a press conference to announce their months of hard work had finally paid off. They announced that the John Doe found in 1995 had formerly been identified as Michael Kirov of Winnipeg, Manitoba. Before leaving Manitoba, Michael Kirov changed his name to Michael Lewis and then vanished into thin air. For reasons that remain unknown, Michael had never been reported as missing. Number 4. Kimberly Ann Funk mysteriously vanished in 1990 and was never seen or heard from again. Her family filed a missing persons report, and investigators were able to figure out that she'd made it from Pennsylvania to the Gulf Coast in either April or June of 1990. But after that, the trail went cold. Kimberly's family never gave up looking for her and hoped that one day they would be reunited. In 2021, their wish came true when Othram Inc. reached out to them in order to obtain a DNA profile and more information about their missing loved one. In 1991, hunters in Ward Bayou, Van Cleve, Mississippi, came across the skeletal remains of a woman in a swampy area. Due to the state of her remains, a cause of death could not be determined, but investigators believed that they were dealing with a homicide. The coroner and anthropologist estimated that the woman was between 25 and 60 years old, 5'2" to 5'6", and 105 to 135 pounds. Again, due to the state of the remains, hair and eye color could not be determined. Somewhere along the way in the investigation, the files of the woman who became known as a Jane Doe were destroyed. It's unknown why these were destroyed or who destroyed them, but it left investigators with a large knowledge gap. They were now working with even less information, but never gave up hope that one day this unsolved mystery would be cracked and that the woman would be reunited with her family. In 2012, a cold case unit from the Pascagoula Police Department worked with the University of North Texas to create a clay model of their doe and to extract a DNA profile. The DNA profile was run through the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, but provided no hits. The case went cold again until 2019, when an anonymous donor gifted the Mississippi State Crime Lab enough money to call in help of Othram Inc. The exact amount donated is not specified, but based on past cases crowdfunded by Othram, the amount needed to begin advanced DNA sequencing and genealogical research is around $5,000. Thanks to the generous donation, the Mississippi State Crime Lab was able to work closely with Othram to create a family tree. It may have taken 2 long years, but in March of 2021, Othram found the doe's brother, who lived in Pennsylvania, and contacted him for more information. Just 2 weeks later, a press conference was held in conjunction with Othram, who were pleased to announce that the Jane Doe found in 1991 was Kimberly Ann Funk, who had disappeared in 1990. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office is now trying to build a timeline of Kimberly's last known movements, and are asking to speak to anyone who may have had contact with her in 1990. If you have any information, you're urged to contact the Jackson County Sheriff's Office at 228-769-3063, or contact the Mississippi Coast Crime Stoppers at mscoastcrimestoppers.com. Number 3. For their entire lives, Mary Heiser's children were led to believe that their mother had abandoned them and left the family home in Pennsylvania. But this was far from the truth. It wasn't until many decades later that her children found out the truth behind her mysterious disappearance. 50-year-old Marie Heiser disappeared sometime in 1977. She was never formally reported missing, and her husband, William Heiser Sr., a former police officer, told their children that she left of her own accord. On June 27, 1977, a teenage boy riding his bike came across the remains of a woman in a drainage ditch in a remote area of Townsend, Delaware. The boy raced home on his bike and told his parents what he had found. Within hours, the Newcastle County Police Office were at the scene and opened their investigation. The woman found was between 40 and 55 years old, with light brown to blonde hair, a partial denture, and gum disease. Due to the state of the woman's remains, eye color and other details could not be ascertained until DNA phenotyping was performed decades later. In 1977, all investigators had to work with was that the woman was middle-aged, had given birth 2 to 3 times, wore a partial denture, had gum disease, and had visible wear on some vertebrae. As Marie was never reported missing, the Newcastle County Police Department were unable to cross-reference her description to their Jane Doe. As the years passed, the case of Jane Doe remained cold, despite the best efforts of investigators. Her DNA profile was run through the Combined DNA Index System, known as CODIS, and the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, but showed no matches. Then, in 2017, Parabon Nanolabs created a profile through DNA phenotyping and were able to predict what their Jane Doe may have looked like in life through DNA markers and specific genes. This led to Officer Steven Smigerski of the Montgomery Police Department becoming involved in the Doe's case. From here, Smigerski used genealogical techniques to create a family tree, and after years of hard work, he had narrowed it down to a few families. According to an article written by Delaware Online, Officer Smigerski contacted families across the US and asked them to submit DNA profiles and provide information. Once this information was put into CODIS, it surprisingly came up with a hit and led them to Mary Heiser in early 2021. Dr. Gary Collins, the chief medical examiner, verified the results and ruled that the Jane Doe found in 1977 was missing 50-year-old Marie Heiser, or Mary Heiser, depending on the spelling. It differs between articles. Investigators are now working to build a timeline of events, and as of yet, have not reported a person of interest. William Heiser Sr., Marie's husband, who failed to report her missing, passed away in 2006, leaving behind her 2 children. Anyone with information is urged to contact Detective Jeffrey Sendak at the Newcastle County Police Office at 302-395-8110. Number 2. Kimberly Rena Jones was last seen in San Bernardino, California, in either the summer or fall of 2016. A lot of details about Kimberly's life are missing, and we only know that she wasn't reported until 2017. We don't know who reported her missing, whether this was a family member, a concerned friend, employer, or a school. Kimberly mysteriously disappeared, and it took months before people noticed her absence. On September 28, 2016, people passing through the area of White Hills, Arizona, close to Highway 93 and Dolan Springs Avenue, made a horrific discovery. In a ravine, they found the body of a woman who was in an advanced state of decomposition. The authorities were called to the scene, and the woman was transported back to the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner and anthropologists were able to ascertain that the body belonged to a black female, around 18 years old, with dark, kinky, curly hair. Other details about the Doe were not captured, as her remains were too decomposed. The local news and police departments began to ask the public for help, but no one came forward to say that they recognized the woman. In 2019, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children updated the composite sketch and re-released it to the public. A year later, in 2020, the body of the unidentified woman was exhumed and DNA was extracted and sent for comparison and forensic genealogy. While NCMEC and the Mojave County Sheriff's Office awaited the DNA results, they pored over the isotope test, which said that the Doe was likely native to far northeastern United States or Canada. They would come to find out that these results were very wrong. In 2021, forensic genealogists managed to track down relatives of the unidentified woman. After obtaining fingerprints and dental records, the Mojave County Sheriff's Office were pleased to announce that the mystery had finally been solved. In a press conference in July of 2021, the Mojave County Sheriff's Office announced that the Doe found in September of 2016 was 18-year-old Kimberly Rena, who had been missing from San Bernardino, California. The investigation into Kimberly's passing is still ongoing, and due to the state of her remains, a cause of death was never determined. Investigators are asking to speak to anyone who knew Kimberly, or who has any information. If you do have information, you're asked to contact the Mojave County Special Investigation Unit on 928-753-0753. Number 1. On July 9th, 2017, police were called to the area of 22nd Place and Garfield Street in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, after members of the public had discovered a deceased woman. She was quickly transported to the medical examiner's office, where a full autopsy was performed. The coroner determined that the woman had passed away due to heat exhaustion, and that the next task on their list was to contact the woman's next of kin to notify them of her passing. The only problem was that nobody knew who this woman was. She wasn't carrying any identification with her, and nobody came forward to claim her. All authorities had to work with was a tattoo that read Laura N. Layla on her lower right leg, and thus she became known as the Laura N. Layla Phoenix Jane Doe. She was described as a white female, aged 44 to 70, with long brown hair to slightly blonde hair. The coroner noted that the pants she was found wearing were too long and too large for her. Reconstructions and appeals were released to the public, but still nobody came forward to identify the woman. The authorities searched through hundreds of missing person cases, but eventually came up empty. In early 2021, the DNA Doe Project took on Laura Doe's case. After sifting through records and contacting people, the DNA Doe Project found a suitable candidate. They then contacted the FBI's latent print department, who confirmed and validated the identification for them. In September of 2021, the Laura N. Layla Jane Doe was formally identified as Laura Jean Jordan, who was believed to have been 47 years old at the time of her passing. Laura was never officially reported missing, and her family remembered last seeing her boarding a bus from California to Oklahoma. In a statement to the press, Detective Stuart Summershoe of the Phoenix Police Department said, quote, "They'd been looking for Laura all these years but hadn't been able to find her. It's emotionally devastating, but also there is at least some relief to have an answer about what happened to her." Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.